Gemara says in Masechta Chulin, Kufla Mites Amud Beis, Esther min ha-Torah minayin. Where in the Torah do we find a reference to the events that happened on Purim? And the Gemara responds the pasuk in Parshas Vayelech, V'anochi haster astir pana mehem, where Hashem says that He will hide His countenance, His face from the Jewish people, meaning to say that events will happen and people will not understand what is transpiring. There's a mitzvah of Mechias Amalek. Parsha Zohar, according to some, it's a mitzvah every day. According to most, it's at least once a year. But we don't know who Amalek is. There's no nation today that has that name. We can't identify them with any degree of certainty. And whereas if we would know who Amalek was, in theory, we would be in a world where Jews would be ascendant, we would be required to kill them. We don't know who they are, so why do we have to remember what they did? Another point is an interesting statement by the Kedushas Levi, of Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev, one of the great Hasidic masters, who says that if Amalek is a spiritual force in the world, then every Jew has a bit of Amalek within him, within himself, that he has to try to destroy. What does this mean? The story with Amalek, as we're going to read in the Kriya on Friday, the Kriya of Purim, is that when the Jewish people were complaining that they didn't have enough water, the end of Parshas B'Shalach, Vayikra Shem HaMakom Masa U'Meriva, he called the name of the place Masa U'Meriva because of the contention. Al Riv B'nei Yisrael V'Anasoisem Es Hashem Leimor, because the Jewish people tested God and they said, Hayesh Hashem B'Kirbeinu Im Oyin. We don't have water. Is God really taking care of us? And then the next pasuk is Vayavo Amalek Vayilochem Im Yisrael B'Refidim. Amalek came and he battled with Israel in Refidim. And Rashi points out the smichus, the juxtaposition between the two parashiyos, that the reason Amalek came was because the Jewish people had doubted if God was with them. And Rashi explains, Rashi gives a mashal of a father who's carrying his son on the shoulder, and whatever the son sees, he says, Dad, can I have this? And he gives it to him, second thing, the third thing, and reaches a certain point where he's so spoiled, this kid, and he meets somebody and he says, did you see my father? And the father says, Azoi? So he takes the boy, takes him off his shoulder, puts him down, and a dog comes and bites the little boy. And that's the story over here. When the Jewish people said, I don't know if God, Hayesh Hashem B'Kirbeinu, Vayavo Amalek. Now, the pasuk continues when discussing the war that the Jewish people had with Amalek. Ki yad vayomer, ki yad al keis ka, Milchama laHashem ba'amalek midor dor. The hand of Amalek is, as it were, on God's throne, and God maintains a war with Amalek midor dor from generation to generation. And the question is, what's the problem over here? Hashem has an issue destroying Amalek. He needs them around. You would think if Hashem is fighting Amalek, he can get rid of them once and for all, and that's it. Clearly, he's keeping them here. And Rashi says something interesting. Ki yod al keis ka, there's a hand on God's chair. Ein Hashem shalem, God's name is not complete. Ve'ein hakisei shalem, and God's throne is not whole ad she'yimachesh moshel Amalek, until Amalek will be destroyed. What does that mean? How do you have God sits on a chair with 2 legs instead of 4? What does it mean that his name is not complete? How do we understand all of this? Now, I think the key to all of this is another medrash. And the medrash makes a salient point over here. It's in the Yalkut. What's the idea of remembering Amalek? And the medrash explains it as follows. There was a king who had a vineyard. He didn't want anybody to mess up the vineyard, so he put a fence around it, and he put a dog inside the vineyard to watch. Came along his son, and he wanted to get in, so he broke the wall open. He got in, and the dog came and bit him. And any time the king wanted to remind his son how he had broken down the wall, broken down the fence, and gotten into the vineyard, he said to him, "Remember the dog?" He didn't tell him what he did. He told him what happened to him. "Remember the dog? Remember you got bitten then?" And the son remembered what he had done that wasn't okay. And the Medrash says that this is the point of Zachar Eis Asher Asa Lecha Amalek. It's not to remember what Amalek did. It's to remember what we did to deserve Amalek. Like the father told the son, "Remember the dog." He didn't care about the dog. He cared about the son, that the son had done what the father had not wanted, broken the wall, the fence of the vineyard, and gotten in. It wasn't about the dog, it was about the kid. So Zechiras Amalek is not to remember what Amalek did to us on the way out of Mitzrayim. It is to remember what we did to deserve that. And as Rashi says, Tamid ani beinechem, I am always with you. Umizuman lekol tzarchechem, whatever you need. You get up in the morning, you can think, you can breathe, you can talk, you can listen, you can see, you can feel, you can move. Who's enabling you to do that? Hashem is enabling you. And the mashal that Rashi gives is not when God takes a man by the hand. We are on Hashem's shoulder. We're not doing anything. A person moves his hand. Who gives him the ability to move the hand? The only thing that's up to him is the decision. But when a person's mind decides to move, to think, to breathe, Hashem is making it happen. We are all on Hashem's shoulders. And the Amalek message is that when a person forgets that he's on the shoulder, it's not that God is holding us by the hand, he's carrying us. And when a person says, Hayesh Hashem b'kirbeinu. Is he with me? Hashem says, you know what? Work it out on your own. Bakasha. Let's see you do it by yourself. And the result is, as with the father who put his son down, or as with the boy who broke into his father's vineyard, you will now be susceptible to natural events. It's a nasty world out there. But then the question becomes, what is it about Amalek? Why is he? There's different ways of suffering. Why is Amalek the way or the tool, the vehicle which God uses to teach us that Hayesh Hashem b'kirbeinu is unacceptable? Because what happened at Yam Suf? Shamu Amir Mirgazun. Everyone, right, as we say in the Az Yashir, the entire world saw what happened to Mitzrayim, saw the Kriyas Yam Suf, and they were scared. Shamu Amir Mirgazun. People heard, they were agitated. Chil Ochaz Yeshvei Plushes. Terror gripped the dwellers of Plushes. Oz Nivhalu al Lufei Edom, the chieftains of Edom were confounded. Ele Moab Yochazei Morad, trembling gripped the powers of Moab. Nomogu Kol Yeshvei Canaan, even the dwellers of Canaan, they fell apart. The whole world saw the hand of God in Yetzias Mitzrayim, in Kriyas Yam Suf. And Amalek said, it's okay. Asher korcha baderech, as Rashi over there says, they cooled us off today. They told the world, chill out. Chill out. Asher korcha baderech, don't get so, it's okay. So God did it. Nothing to be afraid of. So when a Jew doubts Hayesh Hashem b'kirbeinu, his exposure to the nastiness of the world is to those people who deny God's presence when it is staring them in the face. That is the rishus of Amalek. And that is the tiny bit of Amalek that the Kedushas Levi says every human being has unless he is masakin it, unless he corrects it. Because man has a tendency, the hubris of man is such that as you do things and you become successful, after a while you think, Kochi v'otzem yodi asali as a chayil hazeh. My strength, my power, the strength of my hand is what gave me the ability to do this. And the message we get is, Amalek is going to show you how strong you really aren't. So this is called, Rabbi Isaac Sher, the great Mashgiach, Rosh Yeshiva of Slobodka, the son-in-law of the Alter of Slobodka, would call this Das Elokim. A person can have Yiras Shamayim. He's afraid of God. He knows that if he's not okay, he's going to get punished. But Das Elokim means the constant awareness of God. And Elokim, as we all know, Elokim is when God runs the world in a natural way. Elokim, as the Mefarshim say, the gematria of Elokim is Ha-Teva, nature. God running the world through nature. Das Elokim means the understanding that the natural forces which govern my life are all a continued expression of God's ongoing will. The pasuk says in Mishlei, Im techapsena Im tevakshena kakesef. If you will seek, we'll see what it is in a second, like money. Uchematmonim techapseno. And you will search for it like you search for a hidden treasure. Pasuk continues, Pasuk in Mishlei Perek Beis. Oz Toven Yiras Hashem. Then you will understand fear of God. V'das Elokim Timtza. Das Elokim is not Yiras Hashem. Yiras Hashem means I am afraid, I am aware that my actions have consequences, and I have to behave myself. But Das Elokim means the awareness that God, the nature that is running my life, is all the continued will of God, and that is matmonim. It's not like money. Go find it. Matmonim, it's hidden. You look for God, you got to look for Him inside of you. You have to look for Him and be aware that the facade does not show Him. And that is why when the Gemara says that Esther min haTorah minayin, and the Gemara brings the pasuk in Vayelech, because it says over there, Vanochi Aster Pana. Let us take a look at what happens over there. Vayomer Hashem o Moshe. Hashem says to Moses, Hincha shochev aval asecha, you're going to die, v'kam ha'amazeh, this nation will get up, v'zodna acharei Elohei nechar ha'oretz. They will go after foreign gods. What does it mean you go after a foreign god? It's not necessarily talking about Avodah Zarah. It's saying that there are other forces in the world that control my destiny besides God. V'azavani, they will abandon me. V'hefer brisi. V'chora api bo bayom hahu, and I will become angry at them. V'azavtim, and I will leave them. V'histarti panamehem, I will block my face from them. They're not going to see what I'm doing. V'hoya lechol u'mitza'u rois rabas atzares. They will suffer. They will become prey to many evils and distresses. V'amar b'yomahu. And then the Jewish people will say in that day, when they begin to suffer, Halo al ki'ein elokai bekirbi mitzauni haros ha'ele. It is because Elokai, Elokim, God as manifested by nature, is not Bekirbi. I don't feel Him, that He is running my life. That's why I suffer these things. And the pasuk continues. As a result of that, and the Ramban discusses the before and after, we're not getting into that. V'anochi haster aster ponai bayom hahu al kol hara asher asa. So in other words, God is going to show you, when you say, Ein Elokai b'kirbi, God is not running my life, okay. Now you're not going to see it. If you declare that I'm not there, I'll let you do it on your own. And that is the story with Esther, that Haman Ha'agogi, who was Amalek's descendant, was sent by God to wake the Jewish people up. And the one who understood this was Esther and Mordechai. I heard from Rabbi Chaim Shmulevitz, there's a machlekes in the Gemara, in Megillah, those of you who've learned it, if Esther was written Baruch HaKodesh. Okay. So he quoted from Reb Chatzkel Sarna, the Chevron Rosh Yeshiva, who said, wow, what an amazing thing about the Megillah, that according to the one who says that it was not written Baruch HaKodesh, but you could have thought that it was. Right? There is somebody who says it does. So here a human being could do something that one could think was divinely inspired. Reb Chaim said that's not what's special about the Megillah. What's special about the Megillah is that events that happened over 9 years, which ostensibly had no connection to one another. There was Bigsan and Seresh, and then there was Vashti, and then there was Esther. And if you take a look at the Megillah, it happened from the 3rd year to the 12th year. What did all of these things have to do with each other? Nothing. But Esther and Mordechai understood that it was God who was moving around the pieces. And the response to the Hester Panim was, the response to God not showing them was to understand that whatever was happening to them, any random event was not just a random event, but was God's plan to move around the pieces in a way that brought the Jewish people to realize that they're making a mistake and to try to rectify what needed rectification. So when we say, Ein Hashem Sholem, Ve'ein HaKisei Sholem, what does that mean? What does the Shem Sholem mean? The name of God is written Yud Kei Vav Kei. That means that God is, it's called the Shem Havaya, that God grants existence to everything in this world. But when we read it in the Chumash and the Siddur, we don't read it as Yud Kei Vav Kei. We read it as Aleph Daled Nun Yud, my master. We see the world today understands to some extent that God is the master, but that God grants existence to everything, that we don't see. When we say V'hoya Hashem l'melech al kol ha'oretz, God will be the king over the entire world, Bayom Hahu, on that day, Yiyeh Havaya Echad Ushmo Echad. When the name Havaya will be pronounced Havaya, when everyone will come to the recognition that God is the one who is Mahaveh, who grants existence, then it'll be Shem Sholem. Right now the Shem is only, the name of God is only how we feel Him, but we don't see it. And the Kisei, again, is God's presence in the world. And as long as there are people like Amalek, or any human being with the shades of Amalek's, or the Amalek gene, let's call it that, which can see God's actions and deny it, it's Ein HaKisei Shalom. God's presence, the awareness of God being here, is not complete. So how does a human being react to difficulty? He has to be aware that God has a plan. God has a plan for you. There's an amazing description of Miriam. She had a nevuah that she's going to have, her parents are going to have a child who is going to be the Moshiach Shel Yisrael, Moshe Rabbeinu. And the baby's born, and then they come and take it away, right? The mother has no choice and throws it into the Ya'ar because he wanted the baby to stay alive. But this child, thousands of other kids in the Ya'ar as well, bobbing around. So what does the pasuk say? Vatesatzav achoso. Moshe Rabbeinu's sister stood there, merachok, watching from the distance, l'de'ah, to understand, to be aware, ma ye'asalo, what is going to happen to Moshe. And the Chafetz Chaim explains, she knew that there was a plan here. She just stood still and waited to see what's going to happen. How is God's plan going to play out? And when a person goes through difficulty in life, and he has challenges, and things don't go his way, he has to know that the challenge is only a challenge, but God has a plan for you. When the Jewish people were facing the Yam Suf, and the Mitzrayim were behind them, Hashem says to Moshe, Hisyatzvu ura'u. Stand there. Tell Jewish people, stand where you are. Don't go anywhere. Stop running around like a chicken without a head. Stay right there. Hisyatzvu ura'u es Yeshuas Hashem. And this means for all of us, as we go through life, and we are faced with situations, challenges, difficulties, suffering, the way a Jew reacts is Hisyatzvu ura'u es Yeshuas Hashem. Stand in your place, wait. And it's, you know what it's like? It's like when you go to the ocean and the waves come. There's two ways of fighting the waves. If you try to fight the wave is going to sweep you away. If you stand there, it breaks. That is why they're called breakers. And this is a Hebrew word as well, Mishbarei Yam. The waves of the sea are called Mishbarei Yam because they can break you. But if you just stand there for a second, they will break over you. Same thing. Depends how you react. And with this we can understand a fascinating Gemara in Beitza. The Gemara makes a very difficult statement. Harotze sheyiskaimu nechasav, someone who wants his property to endure, yita bohem adar. He should plant adar. And the Gemara brings a pasuk. Shenemar adir b'marom Hashem. God is, it's a pasuk in Tzadik Gimel, right? How does the pasuk go? Mikolos mayim rabim adirim, more than the roars of many waters, mishbarei yam, mightier than the waves of the sea. Adir b'marom Hashem, you, God, are mighty on high. And this is the pasuk, Adir b'marom Hashem, that the Gemara brings to tell you that if you want to keep your property safe, you should plant Adar. What does that mean? So the Meir and other Mefarshim and the Rishonim say that there was a plant that from the time of Yoshua that had very deep roots. You put it around your property. Okay, a very straightforward explanation. The Chidush Yarim says, Yita bohem Adar. If you want that your property, in other words, the chas of what you have in this world, should endure, take the lessons of Adar and make them part of your reality. But what does it have to do with the pasuk? Shenemar adir b'marom Hashem. God is mighty on high, adir, Adar. But that is the message of Adar. That more powerful than any breaking wave of this world. Mikolos mayim rabim adirim mishmareyam. Stronger than the roar of the waters that look like they're going to break you. It's Adir b'marom Hashem. The waters, as we know, are controlled. The tides are controlled by the moon, which is controlled by the sun. Right? This is not something that starts down here. It's not that the ocean has strength and power and is the cause of its own waves. So when a person undergoes waves in this world, when you're suffering, when things don't go exactly the way you would like them, Hisyatzvu, stay right there. Let the wave be mishbarei yom. Let it break over you. And that is the message of Adar. God has a plan If you do yours and you straighten out what you have to do, everything else will fit into place. And as the Jewish people got the message that Hashem is using Amalek in their day, in the day of Mordechai and Esther, to give them a message, and they got the message. And they did what they had to do, and the threat from Haman to destroy the entire people was removed. So when we say in davening in the morning, what do we say? By Berchas HaTorah. V'niyah kulanu, let us be anachnu v'tzetzoenu, us and our offspring. Kulanu yodei shemecha v'lomdei sorasecha l'shmo. We are davening for this thing, that we're asking Hashem that we should be yodei shemecha. It's not only that we are lomdei sorasecha, that we get away from the refidim, which is the rafu yadeim in Torah, that the Jewish people were a little bit lax in their learning, but to be yodei shemecha. That's what we daven for when we say Berchas HaTorah in the morning. And at the end of davening, before Aleinu, right? Bitchu b'Hashem ad hayad, trust in Hashem always, right? V'yiftechu b'cha, who trusts in God? Yodei shemecha, those who are aware that it is yes Elokai b'kirbi, that it is yes das Elokim, the awareness of God in his every action, that we are like the child who's on his father's shoulders. It's not that our father's taking us by the hand. Wherever we go, whatever we do, whatever we want, he is giving us the ability to think, the ability to breathe, the ability to talk, the ability to do anything in life. All the things that we take for granted, all the Elokai, the natural, ongoing will of God, that is Bekirbi, and let Hashem help that we should be Zeicha to these messages during the days of Purim, today, tomorrow, on Friday, and throughout the entire year. Let us be Zeicha to be Yodei Shemecha, V'lomdei Sorasecha L'shmo.